I've been driving around in this BMW F10 M5 for a while now, but to be honest, I'm sort of struggling to make up my mind about it. Most of the time, it's quite frustrating to be honest, but when you start to really push it, it all starts to make sense. When you initially jump into the car and it's in its sort of standard default settings, the first thing that I noticed was just how awful the throttle response is. I mean, it literally, there's nothing there. So I'm driving now with all my kind of tuned settings. Still turbo lag, but there's a reasonable amount of throttle response. But you do have to tune the car up to exactly as you want it. If you just jump in and drive it normally, it literally feels like an extremely slow car. And I don't get that. I can't get my head around it. And the annoying thing as well is that it keeps defaulting back to it. Not necessarily every time, but it almost seems like a bit of a lottery as to, I know I sound like I'm insane at this point, but I promise you, I've been driving it long enough. It is a bit of a lottery whether your mode stays selected or not, at least with this particular version of the car. So that's the first kind of frustration with it. Another thing that I notice is the DCT is not terrible, but it is a bit clunky. And it's, again, it seems a little bit random as to, sometimes you'll sort of shift up and you think, oh, that was a really fast shift. And then 2 minutes later, you'll do it again and there's a bit of a delay. Same with the downshifts. I don't know why that is, but it seems a little bit non-premium to me. The gearbox, I did a comparison. I don't know whether the video is going to come out before or after, but I did a direct comparison with the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, and the gearbox in that is light years better than in this car. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible, it's just not that good, and I would have kind of intuitively expected more from BMW, to be honest. The other thing is, the first time I took it on the motorway, it was quite noticeable how much the car was wandering. I wondered at first if maybe the tracking was out, so I took it to have it done, got it laser aligned. No, it's all kind of as it should be per manufacturer's settings. But again, it's not terrible. And I actually did come up with a theory. Maybe if there's any drifters watching this or any car setup experts, you can tell me if I'm right or not. I'm wondering if it's got something to do with the caster on the front wheels, which in case you don't know is sort of how much they're leaning forwards or backwards in relation to the suspension. And this car is a mega drift car. It's like a luxury sort of executive driftmobile, which I know kind of doesn't make any sense. And I'm wondering if the way that they achieve that, or one of the ways they achieve it, is by setting up the front caster so that it's appropriate for drifting. But I don't think that same setup is very appropriate for motorway drives. So that's my theory. Am I right or wrong? Let me know in the comments. This car, although it is kind of a 5 Series, an exec-mobile, it's not really about that, is it? It's like a 4-door fire-breathing monster. So I'm more interested, if I'm honest, what it's like to drive at higher speeds, to drive sort of enthusiastically, shall we say. And I've got to say, that's when this car really does come alive. I mentioned before, it loves to drift, and it's almost, it's very difficult to take the car seriously when you start driving it hard, because it's just so mad. But I will say, even if you're like a really experienced sort of racing driver, at most times I would say keep MDM on. So there's a sort of 3 stages of the traction control. There's normal on, which is not very good really. It's really making sure that you absolutely cannot crash at all, which is, you know, it's nice, but not really a driver's thing. When you turn it on to MDM, it allows you, kind of explicitly allows you to play. And you can kind of do a little bit, you can kind of get the car a bit sideways on the exit of corners and stuff like that. It allows you that much. When you turn MDM off, the car becomes an absolute animal. You could sort of just turn the steering and flip the throttle and it feels like it would just donut on the spot. This is the crucial thing, until it's not. When we were filming some of the external shots last week, James didn't see this and he didn't catch it on camera, luckily. But I was literally driving briskly, because you have to drive briskly, otherwise it looks rubbish on camera, but not like dangerously, or so I thought, not very quick or anything like that. And there was a sort of puddle on the inside apex, and I just kissed it as I would normally do. You kind of weave through this little fast chicane thing, and the car went completely sideways, and I thought, oh my God, we're going into the bush. I don't think I've ever had that in any other car in my entire life, and certainly not since we've been doing Adam drives. We often use that same bit of road to get external shots. Not a whiff of that ever in any car except this one. So if you're going to buy a BMW M5, know that if you turn the traction control fully off, you might die. But when you stop messing about and trying to look like a Japanese drifting god, which I'm definitely not, you realise just how fast this car is. This particular one apparently has been modified, so it's over 600 horsepower. As standards, they're 552. Loads of torque as well, 625 newton meters. Again, we'll have to put it on screen if that's not quite right. It's a fast car, but it's heavy though. Combined with the turbo lag, which is very significant. It doesn't feel very quick in normal driving modes, but when you've tuned all the settings to exactly as you want it, which I think I've done now. Let's see, so we're doing 40 miles an hour, third gear. I'll knock it down to second, 4,000 RPM. Wheel spin, that was MDM modes. So yeah, it's kind of extremely quick and it carries on going as well. This is a car that sort of demands a lot of respect if you haven't got all the nanny modes on. I think that is, to reiterate, because I don't want anyone going and wrapping in one round a lamppost, it is important to kind of keep that in mind. The main setting that you've got to sort of control how much of a psychopath the car is the M dynamic mode, which is kind of just below the gear lever down here. And there are only 3 settings on that, but actually I need to do a quick calculation. So there's 5 different settings. So there's traction control, efficient, sport or sport plus, damper settings, there's 3, comfort, sport or sport plus, and then you've got the 3 M dynamic modes. So basically we've got 4 different settings. Okay, there's 81 possible performance settings that you can do on this car. And if you include the steering in that as well, 243. That is just too many, and it would be kind of okay if it remembered them, but you can only get it to remember 2 of them with the M1 and the M2 buttons on the steering wheel. That's all very well and good, but when you press, for example, M1 to put it into your sort of daily driving mode or whatever, if you then change something else, like you put it into manual mode, for example, it will just sometimes randomly turn it off. Again, it comes back to the car being a bit inconsistent, not always remembering. But in general, I don't feel like, I don't particularly want to tune every setting to, finely so that everything works with all the other settings. I much prefer to just sort of have a psychopath mode, sport plus, sport, comfort, something like that. Just 5 or 6 different modes that you can easily and quickly select. But the car, BMW don't do it like that. So for me, that's the downside. While I'm being a bit negative about the F10 M5, I might as well tell you some of the other things that I don't really like about it. The thing that I find that puts me off the most about the car is you just feel a bit detached from it. Even when you're driving it fast, you still do feel a little detached, but especially when you're driving slowly. I mentioned the throttle response, etc. So, you're not getting immediate dopamine hits from when you give it a control input with the throttle. You're not kind of like getting the instant kick in the back that you would sort of hope for to put the big smile back on your face. But beyond that, the steering is just a bit vague. Not vague in terms of directionally, but there's not a lot of texture that comes through it other than the exact feeling you get through the seat as well. So the vibration and the feeling you get through the seat is exactly the same as the one you do through the steering. And as I mentioned, the steering's got 3 different settings. I honestly don't know why you would have it in the 2 higher settings. I think it's Sport Plus and Sport, because it's just too stiff and you don't get any advantage from it. You don't get more feeling through the steering. It's exactly the same. Yeah, that is a bit of a thing for me. I do like to feel exactly what the car's doing, and you just feel like you're one step removed. A couple of points on the sounds the car makes. It's a little bit disappointing, to be honest, similarly to the Jaguar XFR that we tested recently. I feel like, as standard, these cars should be a little bit more louder and are just a bit more aggressive in terms of how they sound if you have the right settings on. I think this car's modern enough where they can adjust the valve settings in the exhaust depending on what mode you've got it in, but it doesn't get any louder. Obviously, I'm not a fan of audio being piped in through the speakers because it's just rubbish, isn't it? It kind of reminds me of when I was a kid. I used to play a computer game called Microprose Formula 1 Grand Prix, and my mum would say, "Adam, you've got school tomorrow, turn off the computer, you're not allowed to do it anymore." So obviously I just turned the the music or the audio right down, and you just don't know what gear you're in. You don't know if you're in the right gear or not. So you have to keep looking at the number in the middle of the dash. I think this is the realization I've had, actually, now I think about it. The reason I think I'm finding it frustrating is because I'm thinking of it as an everyday car, but it's not. It's one that you would want to have in your collection, and you'd have to think about it similar to an exotic, like a Ferrari or something. Take it out on certain roads on the weekend or in the middle of the night or something and drive it like a hooligan, but you wouldn't really want to necessarily commute to work in it. I think that's where we're going wrong with this car. We're thinking about it in the wrong way. The other thing on the sound, it just doesn't sound like a V8 to me. It sounds like a slightly aggressive and extremely powerful spin dryer. It's not only BMW that are guilty of this. So much of the drama of a car, especially kind of a really nice car like this, comes from the noise it makes, the sound. I mean, let's try it. So we'll give it some. Does that sound like a V8 to you? It just doesn't, does it? So yeah, could do a lot better on that front, I think. Get your act together. We want cars that sound good. I feel like I've been sitting here for the last half an hour just slating this car, but it may surprise you to know I actually really quite like it. It's a weird one, this. It's kind of really grown on me, I think, more than any car I've ever owned for any period of time before. It's nice to know what it can actually do, and especially if you can actually experience that from time to time, and you can use the car for what it's, the only thing it's good for, really, which is driving like a complete hooligan, in safe conditions, of course, you understand, and completely legally. Knowing it can do that does give you some pleasure, but really, I don't know, I can say it's faster than I expected. I was thinking it would be sort of the same kind of performance as the Jaguar XFR, but it feels distinctly faster. And I think in a straight line, point to point in a straight line, I think it would be faster, slightly faster than the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio as well, which will probably trigger a lot of people that love that car. It's not a diss of that car at all. In fact, of the two, I would still choose the Alfa. Who is this car for? Is it for people that want a daily or a autobahn cruiser, you know, like a cross-continent cruiser? Is it a track car? I don't think it's any of those things. It's too heavy to be a track day car, and you do feel that on the road as well. It's another thing that I don't like about it, but I'm not talking about what I don't like about this car. I'm talking about what I do like, and specifically who the car's really for. I can imagine this being one of those cars in 10 years' time is worth quite a lot more than it's worth today. So, you know, if you really, really like them, maybe just treat yourself and get one. Anyway, I digress. I think it's time that we sort of quantify this car and put a score out of 10 on it. Adam Drive's score out of 10. Let's rate it on fun, comfort, handling, and how it makes you feel. For fun, that's probably the most difficult one of all. It's not very fun to drive as a daily, as I've sort of told you at length, but it's extremely fun to drive like a lunatic. So if you think of the car as an exotic and not a daily, I don't know, I think I've got to do a combination of the two, haven't I? So I think a fair score would be 8 out of 10. I think that is fair, given that it's not very fun as a day-to-day kind of car. Comfort, it is actually really comfortable. Yeah, James commented when we first bought the car, he said you get a lot of rake in the seats compared to available to you compared to other cars, and he's quite a lanky guy, so you know it was comfortable for him as a daddy long legs, and it was comfortable for me as a midget. So I think it's extremely comfortable. Yeah, I want to give credit where credit's due. I think it's 9 out of 10 for comfort. BMW M5 F10, 9 out of 10. As for the handling, there's nothing wrong with the handling. The brakes, by the way, are very good on this car. They are from factory. They're nice. So good job to BMW on that. But it's just, like I say, it's numb, and I think you have to consider the feel you get from the car quite a lot when talking about handling. If you're a drifter, if you love drifting, like there's a guy in Austria, OG Schaffern, he thinks this is the best handling car of all time, and I bow to his expertise on that in terms of driving it up a snowy mountain road. I'm not a drifter, so you know, if you like that, it's probably like a 9.5, but I think for like a normal person, I don't know, I think it's really killed by the feel of the car, and I can appreciate it's great to hoon about in, but it is heavy as well, and that absolutely kills the handling in any car. So I think it's kind of like a 7.5 for handling, really. But crucially, how does the car make you feel? Again, it's polarizing. I mean, I've been driving around in this car for about a month now, and it has grown on me a lot, as I said, it has. But do I think, oh, I can't bring myself to sell that car? You know, as was the case with the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, I was genuinely sad to see it go. And before that, the Mercedes C63S, I really had to force myself to sell that car because I absolutely loved it. This car, I don't know, it just doesn't, as a day-to-day car, it just doesn't do it for me. It's too heavy, it's too, you're too removed from the driving experience. And although you know it can be incredibly fun if you drive it like a lunatic, you know, the sound's not there, as I said. It's a really good car, but it's just too boring. Look, the throttle response problem, the fact that it keeps knocking itself out of, you know, your finely tuned modes that you've put it into. It's just not there, I'm afraid. And I was quite critical in terms of the Jaguar XFR in terms of how it makes you feel. And I think I need to hold this car to the same standard of criticism. So I think, realistically, 6 out of 10. Bringing the total to. If you like this video, make sure you're subscribed and check out some of the other videos we've got on the channel. We actually deleted a load recently because it seemed like we were confusing the YouTube algorithm. It didn't know whether we were coming or going. So we're kind of trying to keep it very clear for the algorithm. So if you have a search through have a look at the videos that we kept, I think you're going to like some of them. And if you like this one, check out the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio review we did earlier. It was actually last year now, and see how the two compare. Anyway, see you later.